Welcome to Cuentame con Aloisel, where we explore inspiring stories and insightful conversations. I'm Celeste, and today I have the privilege of conducting the English portion of our interview. Our guest today is someone whose life journey is filled with resilience, creativity, and an unwavering spirit. He has faced significant challenges, including the impact of thalidomide, but has turned his experiences into a source of strength and advocacy. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Javier Joven. Javier, it's an honor to have you here, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you. The honor is completely mine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Javier, your journey has been filled with many ups and downs. Can you please tell us about a specific moment in your childhood that you cherish the most?
Like all of us, our life is peaks and valleys. And what really stands out to me is my youth after I went a series of surgeries to be able to correct a physical disability that I still have today, where I have one leg shorter than the other. Mm-hmm. The circumference is more than an inch difference. My back is 3 centimeters off. Mm-hmm. And it's because I was affected because my mother took a non-approved by the FDA drug for morning sickness that was created in Germany, thalidomide. I always have a hard time saying that word. And so it gave me a physical disability. And so from after age 1, I would spend this quiet time with my mom because physical therapy was done by my mother. And so there was a series of exercises I had to do. Yes. And so I wore what I call a Forrest Gump type of cast iron leg braces. And then I learned because I had to learn how to walk after age 2 to 3. And so it's affected my whole life. People always said that I had to work harder at physical endurance. I had a heart murmur. So the thing is that type of drug had a long lasting effect on my life to this day. Where I went through serious experiences. There's worldwide, I am one of the survivors.
Yes.
And so but also it gave me a narrative with my mom, because those quiet times through therapy, there was always a conversation, even though the words were being used. And so it was that one-on-one that really has helped me now as an adult. It gave me humility.
Yes.
It gave me a love for the interaction between two people, two souls. Even though there is an interaction, there's a connection between a mother and a son, but it is something that my mom imprinted me to be able to have those relationships now at the age of 59, not only with my wife, with my kids, my daughter-in-laws and my grandkids, but with the community. And it has really impacted me as a mayor, and it's what's really guided my life, up to this point politically.
Yes. I mean, the thalidomide, it has to be completely difficult for you, and navigating your adolescence, without any physical disabilities can be very challenging as it is. How did your family support you during those turbulent teenage years?
Well, one of the things they always treated me normally. There was never this, we're going to cradle you. My brother and my sister are, if I'm right, they're 9 and 7 years older than I am.
You only have 2?
Yes, there's only 3 of us. And so there's a big gap. So when I was growing up, they were into stereos. They were in high school. There were cars, boys and girls.
And you're the baby.
And I'm the baby. I'm the one that said they're spoiled one. I said, no, I'm the chosen one. And so, but yes, navigating adolescence, teenage years is tough enough, but when you have all of this, and here's the thing is that I didn't know.
You didn't know that you had...
Well, I didn't know that that's the way I was affected.
Okay.
My mom made me believe that I stuck my foot in her ribs.
When you were in her womb.
And when I was in the womb. Well, as a kid, I believed that.
Yeah.
And going to school and being educated, that was an improbability.
Yeah. So growing up, I know that you had surgery when you were a baby.
Yes, I was a year old.
You were a year old.
Yes.
And so, but you said that one of your legs is shorter than the other. So
Yes.
you did notice a difference between you and the rest of the children.
No.
No, you didn't?
No, it was never made aware to me.
Okay.
And I did not realize that one leg was shorter to the other till I was already an adult. And so what happened is that I would go through a lot of shoes as an adult, and there'd be this pain. And I really didn't realize it until I got into weightlifting when I was in, I'd say, my late 20s, early 30s. And when I would lift, I didn't notice. I said, hey, there's something off here. Yeah. I would always have to put a small plate under my heel on my right leg so I could be even. And so it was when I finally went to a doctor, and they started telling me, and then I wind up getting orthotics. And he said, hey, your back is off 3 centimeters.
Yeah.
And he said, your one leg is shorter than that. Now, my calves are not symmetrical, and I knew that. But it was then that started.
But did you know that you had surgery when you were a baby?
Yes, they always told me I had surgery to do.
But they didn't explain why.
Well, it's because when I was born, my toes is where my heel was, and my heel is where my toes were. So
your leg was completely flipped.
Yes.
Backwards.
And so the surgery was a corrective surgery.
Okay.
So they dislocated the ankle, turned it around, reconnected the Achilles heel, and then they and before that there was a series of procedures, casting it, doing things, and basically it said, well, what we can do is we can mold it, cast it, set it in place, and as he grows up, it will form the way it was. Well, none of that worked, and so my mom was really the one. And remember, my mom was doing it without knowing English. And so
Where was this?
This was 1965. So the process from 1965
but
to
that was
66.
here in the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
And think about that. In those days, Odessa was a very small, didn't have the medical advances.
The 50s?
60s.
60s.
I was born in 65. So
okay.
For that whole year is when they worked it. And it was after a year old, between the year 1 and 2, is when they found this doctor in Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing is, and I'm not going to use their name, but there's another family here that still exists. The parents have now been deceased. So both their child and myself went through the same thing. And so we had the same disability.
Yeah.
They took she took the same medication for morning sickness that my mom did. And my parents went to Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras and found a surgeon where the corrective surgery was where they did the corrective surgery, and it took place. But that couple chose not to go through that route. And to this day, that person has the disability, and I have the corrective one. In fact, when I was in my mid-30s, my orthopedic doctor said, hey, I've seen a lot of these, what they call club foot.
Yes.
He goes, yours is pretty good. And so I still need more corrective surgeries.
I have heard of that, of club
foot. Yeah.
And it wasn't until, we found out about your background and your story and your challenge with, the effects of thalidomide, that just doing research in, regarding it. So thalidomide was a medication that was developed in Germany, and it was widely used from the late 1950s to the early 1960s. And worldwide, it was about 100,000 children that were affected, and only 10,000 survived. And today, in 2024, there are about 3,000 survivors of the thalidomide scandal, and pretty much a catastrophe that happened worldwide. So the fact that you are here, that God just spared you and you were blessed in the small town of Odessa, Texas, to be able to find the resources to get that corrective surgery. I mean, that's a miracle in itself.
Yes.
And I was taken aback by the figures, and I'm in awe from how you overcame.
Well, first of all, I didn't know.
Yeah.
My mom always.
She said that you had your foot in her rib. That's a cute little story. I mean,
and as a kid, you believe it.
Yes.
And so, but the thing is, there's this thing called education.
Yes.
And
the internet.
And then the internet. And so I started asking questions. My brother was not a good source of information.
And this is your older brother, and that's
yes, my
older
older
than
brother.
you.
But my sister did. She said, yes, mom took, but she didn't know what she took. She just said, because mom took this for morning sickness. She had real bad morning sickness.
And from previous conversations, you had said that when you asked your mom, she said, no, I didn't take anything.
Never. She would never admit it. The one thing is because first she wouldn't admit she took contraceptives. She's a Catholic. Okay. And very devout Catholic.
But thalidomide was meant to be used for morning sickness.
Correct. Okay. And when she got, when my parents decided they were going to have me, she always had real bad morning sickness, and she would take this, and she had taken it previously, because prior to my oldest brother being born, my parents lost 2 children.
She took thalidomide during those pregnancies.
Yes, but she didn't know.
Yes.
And it wasn't until after the fact, because this didn't become a reality, and this information didn't start coming out till decades later.
Yes.
I found out in my 20s and listening to a news break, and that's when I started asking questions. It wasn't until years later, after we were adults, that I asked. My sister came forward. He goes, "Yeah, mom took this. I think this is what she might have taken." And so in my research, I started looking at it, and it fit because it was the scandal that went worldwide, and one of the major disabilities was cleft foot.
Yes.
And so the probability that this is what was being taken, that my mom had, a lot of women were taking this. They weren't told about the side effects too.
And
it wasn't
imagine
even
as a
approved.
mother to find out that the medications that you took caused it. I mean, that is, I can understand why, she would have been apprehensive in coming forward and saying, yes, it was my fault. I took this, but it's not our fault. See, as mothers, we trust our doctors, and we trust, unfortunately, we trust the pharmaceutical industry to test these medications before they're put forward.
It was never approved.
And it was never approved, just like many medications that have not been approved, but that were given out to many people, and we're still seeing the effects of that. There's a similar story in my personal life where we have been, affected by the effects of medications. And so I know that you grew up, well, she was Catholic, and that also carries,
it's a note responsibility.
Yes.
We're all raised Catholic. We were educated through the Catholic faith.
You're not supposed to take any contraceptives and medications, and you don't want to come forward with that.
And so the thing is as we got older, me and my mom had a conversation, and I said, there's no blame assessed here.
Yeah.
This is life experiences.
Yes.
And this is what gives us the wisdom. So we rectified that between us.
I remember that, as believers, we do understand that what the enemy plans for our destruction and our evil, the Lord turns for his glory.
Yes.
So, and this is a prime example.
Exactly.
Here you are, a living testament.
Well
You're
placed.
able to speak to those with disabilities and just be an inspiration to those of us, me included. I'm a disabled veteran, and to see how far you've come and how, God has, he never leaves us behind, and Amen. He has a plan and a purpose for you that is going to come to fruition. And, we're just very blessed.
Amen.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it better.
Mm-hmm.
Well put.
So you mentioned that, speaking about thalidomide, how it had a significant impact in your life. How did you come to terms with this part of your story, and what has it taught you?
Well, first, I wanted to come to terms with it. I had to get the full story.
Yes.
I was like an investigator. I had to put it bits and pieces because nobody was giving testimony.
Yes.
And so it's a theory of mine.
Yes.
Was it ever proven? Did my mom ever say this happened?
Mm-hmm.
That she took this? Mm-hmm. Concrete evidence. When all the little pieces came together, it had to be it. Yes. And so when I confronted it, she never admitted it. Mm-hmm. She even to the day that she passed away, she said, "No, you put your foot in my ribs."
Oh.
And I get it, but the thing is that all the evidence points that this is what happened. Yes. And also that there is another person here in Odessa. We're the same age, born the same time. Their families know each other. I'm not going to reveal it for the reason is that, protect their privacy, but they didn't have the corrective procedure that I did. So to be I'm thankful
Yeah.
that my parents worked very hard to correct what they felt responsible for.
Yes.
I wish it would have, as growing up, they would have told me the story, but they didn't know. They really didn't know. They didn't know the causes of the medication.
I mean, you had just found out yourself as an adult.
Yes.
So,
And
and imagine, and your mom obviously was already, a senior. And when you come forward with this information saying it was, this medication is what causes this, can you imagine the impact on her heart?
So what I realized really towards the, at later, when my parents were already advanced in age, my mom here in August 20th will be 4 years since we lost her.
Yes.
We had a conversation, and so she had taken this previously. So my parents, when they got married in 52, they always had a plan of having a family, 3 kids.
3 children.
But because my mom took this, because she would get really sick from morning sickness, the first 2 children passed away. But they didn't realize it was the medication.
Yes.
So she finally got off all the medication, never took anything for the morning sickness, and then in 56, my older brother was born. In 58, she then, between those 2 years, she got back on some type of medication, and they wind up having my sister in 58, and she's had a lot of medical issues, even to this day.
Yes.
And so then, once again, she got on the medication, and then 7-year gap, she got off of it, but started taking the medication for morning sickness, and that would cause my deficiencies. And so being able to put all that story together and having that conversation, but here's the thing is, what I'm thankful for is that my parents were only going to have 3 kids.
Yes.
Because of the first 2 passed away, paved the way for me to be born.
Yes.
And so, sometimes we don't realize that some of the things, some of the peaks and valleys in those valleys, sometimes God plants those too.
Yes.
And it's part of his plan. People say, well, God doesn't give us pain. No, he does not give us pain. But sometimes we have to go through that, and the pain is the gift.
And it doesn't come to him as a surprise.
Right.
Because remember that God lives outside of our timeline. He sees the beginning from the end, and he says that he has the book of your life already pre-written before you're woven into your mother's womb. So this was not a surprise for him, but he had good things for you.
And a friend of mine always said that pain is a gift of God because it forces us to move from one point to another to get us away from that.
You.
And so, and it does strengthen. And the wisdom that I always prayed for, God gave me those obstacles.
Yes.
And so this is what has been my life lesson of where I am at today, to be able to come to terms with it.
Yes.
I'm not bitter about it. It is for me who I am. It's giving me my inspiration. And this is why I've supported making abortion illegal.
Yes,
here in Odessa, Texas. And it was important because that's been the inspiration, because my parents chose life. And it was the sacrifice of both my brother and my sister not being born that there was a pathway for me to born. God had, like you said it real well, there is a plan here.
Yes.
And I sincerely really believe that with all my heart, that this is what God planned. And that's why I've dedicated my whole life to be able to use this platform as being mayor, as a ministry, to be able to talk about the wonders and the glorious that is God, and the role that, and the impact and the interaction and the impact that God has in my life, even to this point.
Yes. And I agree. I mean, Odessa, Texas is a sanctuary city for the unborn, one of the first ones here, especially in West Texas. And when so many times, for our own convenience, as being affected with physical disabilities and, in your family, it can be challenging to raise children who it just takes so much time, and it's heartening, but you don't know what God has planned, for that child. And there is so much that can be done even through disabilities that you don't know the impact that it's going to have. So choosing life, 100%, we 100% support that. I'm very happy that you are a mayor that chooses life. And continuing on, something that's near and dear to my heart, I'm an artist, and I know that art and creativity has played a significant role in your life. Can you share how drawing and sketching help you cope with these challenges?
Yeah, one of the things is once again, my brother and my sister are 7 years older than I am. So growing up is kind of like having siblings, but also being an only child.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of isolation.
Yes.
And I think that isolation really spurred my creativity. Mm-hmm. And so one of the philosophies that I use, that I feel that you experience the world through your five senses, and art is the same way for me.
Yes.
Through the five senses. People say, what do you mean? I said, well, you experience art and food and how it tastes and the visual and the smells and the texture and the touch.
Yes.
And art through listening.
Yes.
One of the artistic things that, I'm going to reveal this. Uh-huh. So my mom had this deluxe Hoover, it was a long cylinder vacuum.
Okay.
And so my brother caught me doing this. Nobody knew that I would do this. So I would mimic sounds.
Okay.
I would be able to manipulate my voice to hit certain pitches. And the vacuum, if you look at the movie Toy Story, they have one of those deluxe vacuums.
Yes.
And it's elongated metal, and it's got the big hose. And there's a certain sound that it does. It's coming back to memory.
Yes.
And when the vacuum would be going, my mom would be vacuuming, I would raise my voice to mimic the sound. And one time, my brother looked up.
I guess this was your first form of beatboxing?
Beatbox, yeah. And so my brother looked at me, caught me doing it, and then I just stopped. My brother would also, on Saturday mornings, when I was watching Saturday cartoons, I would draw figures from magazines, his sports magazines, and I would draw off of that. I would take my sister's homework that she would bring, and I would mimic her cursive handwriting.
Okay.
And also I would copy like maps and stuff. It was her history. And so I would just love doing that. I was an administrator before there was an administrator. Mm-hmm. And so it was those little things. And to this day, what I do is I find inspiration.
Healing.
It's healing.
It's healing.
It's
and
healing.
Because I relate to that in, growing up with a very challenging childhood as well. Just there's healing, and there's all the emotions that you have bottled up, or sometimes you feel suffocated with what you can and can't do.
Yeah. You're
able to release that through art, and just to have that visual satisfaction of, it's just a release.
Yeah.
When you see it, and finding beauty in every circumstance. So when you said when you were talking about the vacuum cleaner, and I was trying to thinking ahead of what you were doing, what I probably would have done is drawn on the carpet with the vacuum cleaner and create designs.
Well, I do it on paper.
Yes.
So if you go into my man cave, it is full of a lot of memorabilia. My memorabilia when I play ball, but memorabilia of my boys. And then my grandkids really don't play sports. My oldest is in football, and so it's their memorabilia. But in there is where I have my drawings. I've drawn stuff about my kids. I've drawn things that have inspired me when I was coaching, and just human interaction. Moments.
I would love to see the drawings. Maybe put a collection together. If you ever write an autobiography, include those drawings in there.
Yeah, I've got them all in a book and put away. And so there's certain things that you can see my progression in working with shading.
Yeah,
because that's one thing you work in. Either using the dot or scribe. There's always techniques, and shading has been one that I've been working on. Oh. And so it's relaxing because you lose yourself all sense of time.
Yes.
And there is no time to stop.
I have time blindness. So if I start painting, I start drawing, I'm up until 4:00 in the morning until the sun's coming out, and I'm like, oh, I need to sleep. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that is awesome. And so reflecting on your life now, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
The legacy's already began, and it's already been implanted. And so when I became mayor for the very first time, the city of Odessa and the city of Midland had a summit between mayors. At that time, it was Mayor Patrick Payton.
Yes.
And we came together at a location in between the cities. There was a question posed in that summit. If there was one thing when your time comes that you're no longer mayor and you left a legacy, What's the one thing you would like to see Odessa be transformed to? Same question was posed to
That's a very good question, and I'd like to hear the answer.
And I said, man, that's a great question. There's many things, but if there had to be one,
yes,
was making abortion illegal in Odessa, Texas, where the city transformed from a city of sin to a city of light and city of love, but a city of life, where
and family values.
Yes, and that was the one thing. If I had a pick of everything that I wanted to leave as a legacy, and it's been accomplished.
Yes,
and so,
thank God.
Yes, and so, that's something, because we are a city of life, and it speaks so much in so many areas, and so the community was able to accomplish that.
Many lives that have been saved,
and will continue to be saved.
Yes.
And so when the community chooses life, then it will be blessed.
Yes.
And so that's how I answered it, but it wasn't a political answer. I was responding, this is an answer because I see God has granted me and Joanne, my wife, the ability to be in this position, use the mayor's position as a platform for our ministry.
Yes.
And to be able to promote his glory. And
yes,
this is something that God wanted to see happen. And it did.
And God's glory is exemplified in your marriage. I mean, you've been married for 4 decades.
Yes.
And you
I've
met
been
her
married longer than I've been alive, pretty much.
Yeah. You met her when you were 16.
We got together.
You got together when you were 16.
We kind of loved, yes, and then at 18 we got married officially.
Okay.
And we had been inseparable. I pray for my wife, all the time, and it's been going strong for 43 years.
God bless you guys. Yes. And so you mentioned overcoming numerous personal and health challenges. So let's talk a little bit about your faith. How has that played a role in your resilience?
You always go back to your faith.
Yes.
Every day at the end of the day, I get home and I take off all the arrows that are shot. I'm a shield.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I was criticized is for attending in a neighboring city, a summit on equality, inclusion, and so I was criticized for that. And I said, what was that like? I like to hear it. I said, you should attend. You should attend when I am speaking about that. Because the people of faith, where's our equality? Where's our inclusion?
Yeah, we're attacked.
And so constantly you're attacked.
Yes.
But the thing is that's what it means to have a people of faith. That is going to happen. I've always said this several times. We want to be like Jesus. We want to live that life. We want to be able to help and spread the gospel and spread the word and spread the truth, but none of us want to be persecuted. Yes. And you can't escape the persecution. And so this is something that has occurred in this realm, in this, I guess, Chandra, you can speak, in politics, to be able to put your faith out in front is basically what I've told you. You don't do that. And so, but I'm not going to shy away from it. There's a $1 billion industry.
But remember that he says that you will be persecuted because you followed me, but he also gives you that armor.
Yes.
And he's not going to leave you alone.
Does not abandon you, doesn't leave you alone.
He's not going to. So it is scary to know that you're going, and that the moment that you come out and you put your faith before anything and before politics, before anything in your life, that you will be attacked.
Yes.
But just know that, remember, for every attack, every time they attack you, because of him, more blessings shower down on you.
And we've been very blessed, because I've always said
we're not called to walk in fear.
There's a $1 billion industry out there to help leaders, and you have all these self-help books and all these guys. The thing is that my counsel comes from God.
Yes.
And there's only one book that I actually use to be able to help me with that guidance. That's the Bible. That's all the one you need. And so one of the things that my faith has taught me is being a leader. It's real simple. I've heard this over and over again. It's just get followers. But it's more than that. Where the thing is what happens is I'm a student of leadership.
Yes.
And my faith has taught me is to care about the people. People say, well, I'm in charge. Well, yeah, you can say that. You are in charge. the buck stops with you. We hear all those cliches, but a student of leadership really cares about the people in its charge.
Yes.
And that is what helps and guide, and that's the Word of God has helped me with that. And so that's what gives me the inspiration. That's what gives me the fortitude to move forward and to do this
and to
again.
Advocate for those that are more vulnerable than you.
Always.
Yes. So speaking of advocacy, your involvement in advocacy and support groups is very commendable. I mean, I've seen what you've done, and I mean, just in helping even those beyond the borders of our city. And what motivates you to continue speaking out and supporting others?
Well, because maybe throughout my life, everybody's helped me and supported me. My parents, seeing that there was physical disabilities, did everything they could within their power and their means and monetary means to be able to help me to be able, because my mom said he's a male. She wanted to see a whole life. She wanted me to grow up, have a life of inclusivity, not exclusivity, to get married, to have kids, and to leave that legacy. It was important for her, and she did not leave any stone unturned. Throughout my whole life, I've had people in my life, family and non-family members, that have always helped me. My coach, Jimmy Ward, the late Jimmy Ward, was a huge inspiration to me to the point when he passed away. And so we stayed friends. I met him when I was 9 years old, and he was an inspiration then. So that coach, and even people that influenced me indirectly, that were negative, not trying to, but pushed me to the point where I was angry with them. But what they saw things in me that I didn't. And so I've not gotten to this point in my life without not having people help me. My economics teacher and my history teacher, I remember they challenged me when I was in school, and my Spanish teacher, I mean, I took Spanish, I had to, and she still remembers me to this day, and she teaches down in the border. And so with all these individuals in my life, pastors, priests, they've all part of my life. You know, even though they're not there every day, they planted seeds that came and basically molded me to the person I am today. It was my parents letting go, because they were my first instructors, they were my first coaches. But they realized, and I use this scenario, there was a time, and I love playing baseball. I played it for 30 years. And so my dad always said this. He goes, there's going to be a time when you're going to be at the plate. And the game's on the line. I can't help you, son. And you're going to have to elevate. And that happened. That happened to me. I pitched
Those are strong words for a child. I mean.
and the thing is they basically wanted to sit there and say, in order for you to appreciate what you're going to go through and what you're going to have at a later time, I said, you're going to have to feel some pain and suffer. And it basically is what sweat equity is what they wanted me to have as a cachet. And now that they've passed, they prepared me for this time.
And you're very grateful for that.
I'm very grateful. It was life lessons to be able to sit and watch my parents pass away, to witness my dad lose his longtime wife, my mother, see my brother and my sister lose their mother, see my kids lose their grandmother, and you can't do anything about it. And the thing is, the experience that I have with my father God is that he lost his child too. And he allowed that child to be sacrificed for us, undeserving, so we could have everlasting life. That's how much he loved us, that he gave up his only son.
And even Jesus Christ on the cross, I mean, like you said, his dad, God our Father, stepped back and left him on the plate. Left him on the plate. You have to do this by yourself. And going back to that notion of being left on the plate, I mean, you, with your parents passing, I know that aside from the physical disability that you have because of the thalidomide, you also went through some difficult challenges, even in the first term of your mayorship, going through cancer.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So immediately right after filing that I was going to run for mayor, my mom passed away immediately right after that. And
she wanted to see you. I know that she wanted to see you become mayor. She was able to witness when you became city council, right?
Yes. You know, and that's another incredible story. My mom became a citizen in 1997, and the first time she voted as an American citizen, she voted for her son in re-election for city council. And that is American
dream. Oh my
gosh,
right that just warms my heart, because what more do I want for my children than to be able to witness, you know, their accomplishments?
Yes.
I just ask God for time.
And so my mom signed my petition to become mayor, but she never saw the fruition of the election, because she passed in August of 2020, and the election wasn't concluded till December 15th of 2020. I remember at the end of the night, on that December 15th, I called my dad, and he was at home, and trying not to get emotional, I told him we won.
Yes.
And so a lot of people said, your mom was watching down. The hard part for me was when I had to go take her off the voting roll 4 days after we laid her to rest. And so somebody said, I thought that was the end of her American dream. And somebody said to me, no, Javier, you're her dream.
With everything that she, I mean, I'm going to get emotional now too, with everything that she put into you, you know, and carrying that pain of maybe I did this to my little boy, and that's why I'm fighting so hard to make sure that he has a normal life, that he has every opportunity that would be offered to him, regardless whether he has this disability or not. And just to be your biggest cheerleader, and to always be there, and just the proud moments to see you, you know, move up through politics and use that, like you said, as a platform for this ministry to share the gospel and to just make the world around you a better place.
Yes. To leave it better than what you found it.
Then leave it better than what you found it. And to be this close to almost seeing you become mayor and then having to miss it, but she is looking down on you.
Yes. And the thing is, we shared that with my dad. And the blessing that came from my mom going first is that I got to meet, I knew my dad. I knew Jose Angel. I didn't know the man. And my mom always says that, you know your dad, but you don't know the man. And so I took care of my dad for 3 years, and when he passed, he was 93 years old. And, you know, and I tell everybody, I said, Dad, it was 7:45 a.m. on September 13th. And he said, 3 years separated from mom is enough. I'm going to go have breakfast with her.
Oh my gosh.
And so yeah. And we were prepared. We laid him to rest. And so they're dancing away in heaven.
See, you can still be romantic at 93 years old.
That's right.
Take note.
That's right.
Take note.
That's right. And, you know, and the thing is that, you know, my parents were married for 67 years. They gave us a great example of how you wind up working a marriage and you have a life partner. And there's been a lot of firsts in my life.
Yes.
And people had made that significance to tell me, hey, you're a first. You're the first, you know, to be in this as far as in
you're
politics.
The first Hispanic mayor in the city, in
almost
the history.
In almost 100 years history of Odessa, Texas.
Yes, of Odessa, Texas.
Yeah. And when the 13th largest city in state of Texas, one of the most geographically, mineral-wise, economic, basically force, not only the United States, but worldwide. Yes. And that is a huge accomplishment. What the diversity of the city and where we're at, where 85% is now Latino. I know that officially we're about 114, 115, but, you know, to be honest, there's over 250,000 people here in Ector County. It is a major place.
Very diverse.
Very.
Remember, there's about 47 different cultures represented in Odessa.
Yes. And it's exciting to be able to see that diversity, you know, growing up in Odessa, Texas. I grew up in segregated schools. You couldn't pass the tracks.
Oh yeah, I mean, you still drive to the different two different cemeteries where the gravestones. You know, you have gravestones for
there's subtle evidence still there. Yeah,
and then you have the other.
But we've overcome all that. We've overcome all that, and that's the beauty of it.
I mean, and it is part of the history, and it's important not to remove the history because we have to leave it there so that we can learn from it.
Yes.
And for our children to learn from it and for them to hear these stories. Yeah. So,
you know, if not, you're doomed to repeat it. And those that know it, I have to sit inside and watch it happen all over again.
Yes, exactly. So looking ahead, What are you most excited about in this new chapter of your life?
Oh, 59 years old.
Yes.
And, at 40, 42, if the body is a car, the check light engine came on at 40, 42.
Oh my gosh.
So if at 59,
you didn't tell me that. I'm going to have to get service soon.
Yeah. So at 59, going into 60, I asked a little think tank that I meet with, and pretty much everybody's there in the late 70s and 80s. They said, well, if you're a car.
My think tank are 8 and 9 years old.
Ah, wow. Wow. That's very lively.
Yes.
And so in this case, they said, if you're a car, you're going to have to garage her every night. You just can't leave it out in the elements. 2, if you're going to go on a long trip, check the tires, top off all the fluids. And don't be surprised if parts are going to start falling off. And when you order them, they're no longer being manufactured.
Oh, my goodness.
He says, but you're good between now and 65.
Okay.
So the thing is that not only am I very content and happy where we are age-wise with me and my wife, and my health constantly is still a challenge. It's our where we are with each other, where we are in our life, both professionally, in our relationship. But looking forward to another 4 years of being mayor, to be able to finish the job of where we have moved the needle for Odessa, Texas, a city that embraced its rambunctious beginnings of you raise hell in Odessa, but you raise families everywhere else. We rebuke that. We rebuke where it is a place to come.
So I got here. I can attest to that. I got here about almost 14 years ago, and that's what it said.
Yes.
People used to say that you raise hell in Odessa and you raise your family somewhere else. Thank God that image is changing, and
it's up to us to change it.
This is a very family-oriented city,
and that's what we'll continue to push.
And a very faith-filled city.
Yes.
I am very blessed to have my children, grow up here. I wouldn't raise them anywhere else. I mean, we travel all the time, but I wouldn't raise them anywhere else.
This is home.
Yeah, this is home. And I going back to those, you're looking forward to the next 4 years.
Yes.
But remember, the first 4 years of your term, you did have cancer.
Yes, you did answer that question. So basically what I ended up doing is I wind up being diagnosed. And
that had to have been.
Well, how it happened was an accident, because basically while I was going through diabetes, I had gotten really, really sick and had been diagnosed when I was 42, 40. And so I went all that time for over 12 years. And then I got real sick in diabetes. And then I was determined I wanted to be able to reverse it. Says, no, you can't reverse it up here. I said, well, I did this to me. I can undo it.
Yes.
And so I worked real hard and was able to do, with medication. And then naturally I was able to reverse it. And I dropped my numbers down to normal. And it was that day that I insisted on a full workup, and that's when they found what they believed was evidence of prostate cancer.
This is after you had already won the mayorship?
No, this is right before.
Right before.
And so then 2 weeks after New Year's in 19, I was driving from Pecos on Highway 285 going to Orla when I got a call from the doctor, and he told me over the phone that of the 13 samples that he'd taken in the biopsy, 70% came back positive for cancer. That's how I found out on the phone.
And isn't it amazing how you just remember exactly where you were and exactly what you were doing and the exact time when you get like this type of news?
When you're told you have cancer, the whole world stops. The whole world
that's
stops.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
I called my wife and I called a friend of mine that was my pastor. That was the two first calls I had. My son was in the vehicle and he pretended to be asleep. And so during this whole time that I've been mayor, I've been going through this process of cancer. I've been in remission. I had to get through a 5-year. And so I'm trying to get to 5 years of being cancer-free. This has never affected me being able to serve. In fact, it's been an inspiration, because when you hear that and that becomes your reality and you go through it, you need support to be able to talk about it, but people around you are unable to grasp it. They have a hard time with it, handling it, because everybody around you feels helpless.
Yes.
And I would make people comfortable because I was so open with being able to talk about it. And so I came up with this I knew they didn't want to ask, I said, everything all right. I've got good days and bad days. Today is a great day. Yes. Even though I was having a bad day, I never let anybody know. And so once I had the surgery, I had seed implementation, it changes you. You never become the same person you were. There are a lot of side effects. Aside from the side effects of the medication my mom took that affected me my whole life before I was born.
Yeah.
Then I had the acetyl, and then I have this to contend with. It poses a lot of challenges, but it's my life. It's my normal. I know nothing else. So to me, this is normal. Yes. And my wife always said, I just want a normal life.
That thorn in your side that God has allowed to be there, and you just keep marching forward.
I always told I would tell my wife, I just want a normal wife, and she just looked at me and says, "What's normal?" And I said, "That's true." And so, but and so I use it when I hear someone who is being diagnosed or potentially being diagnosed with cancer, regardless of what cancer it is. I immediately drop everything and I just sit and listen. And even the loved ones that are dealing with their loved ones, that they're finding out whether their husband or their wife or their child, especially if it's a child, I drop everything. I just listen and give them all my full attention and support, because I just want to hold and hug on people, because I know what it feels like. And I know how it feels like, because my wife would look at me and she says, "I know you'll feel helpless. Just being here is enough." Yeah. And that's what we as cancer patients and survivors, sometimes you don't need to say anything. Just a strong hug is enough. And so that's why I participate in many events throughout the community that support cancer, that cancer awareness to survivors and the family members. Yeah. Me and my wife are always there, because that's us.
Well, thank you so much, Javier, for sharing your incredible story with us, and definitely your journey. This was truly inspiring, and it is a testament to the power of resilience, of creativity, and to our faith. And we also send out a big thanks to Camino Prospero. Please follow Camino Prospero on Facebook for more updates and exclusive content. And to our wonderful audience, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of Cuéntame con Alo y Cel. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will continue to bring more inspiring and insightful stories and conversations that keep us moving toward progress. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, share it, follow us on social media, and stay updated on all our latest content. Until next time, I leave you with a piece of my heart. Keep dreaming big, praying big, and always remember that he who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it. Thank you, and goodbye.